Hi and welcome to Best in Tesla. I still hear people say to me that it is not looking too good for Tesla because of all these terrorists. But what people tend to forget is that Tesla is actually one of the best positioned automakers in the world when it comes to tariffs and trade wars. And Tesla has made huge move to make sure that they will be even better positioned in the future, making sure their destiny is in their own hands. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. Firstly, Tesla has one of the most localized supply chain of any big company on earth. In China, Tesla has more than 95% localized supply chain. I believe it's actually 100% today, as that was Grace Tao Lin that said that back in 2022. And in Europe, Tesla should be above 90% localization as well. And in the US, it is about 70%. But in the US, Tesla is the most American-made vehicle, even though their localization is much lower, because the other guys have a much lower localized supply chain, like GM, where 71% of all the EVs GM currently sell in the US are made in Mexico. Every vehicle Tesla sells in the US are made in the US and mostly with US and Canadian parts. So having such a local supply chain also reduces emissions from shipping parts across continents, which not only save Tesla money but also aligns perfectly with Tesla's mission. So Tesla sits very nicely if the trade war should intensify, as they have the most localized supply chain. But Tesla has more advantages than just the supply chain, because even though the Model Y that is being sold in the EU is made in the EU and 90% of its parts comes from the EU, well, their Berlin factory only produces the Model Y. So the Model 3 that is sold here in Europe comes from China. But compared to the other Chinese brand that we always talk so much about, well, Tesla has yet another advantage, because the new tariffs that has been put in place on EVs coming from China, well, that is regulated compared to how much subsidies you get from the Chinese government. So because Tesla doesn't get many subsidies from the Chinese government, they have the lowest tariffs on their Chinese imported Model 3, compared to someone like BYD that has about 30% of their profits coming from the Chinese government in form of subsidies. So someone like BYD gets like 17% on top of the 10% mandatory tariffs, where someone like SAIC gets 35.3% on top, where Tesla only gets 7.8% tariffs on top on the mandatory 10%. So to give an example of how much this will affect the price of those EVs here in Europe, well, if Tesla sells a car for $30,000 in China and send that one to Europe, the price would go up by 10% plus the 7.8%, so in total 17.8%, making the car cost about $35,340 in Europe, whereas a car from SAIC, like the MG, will have a 45% tariff on their car, and it will end up costing $43,400 in Europe, if these two cars did cost the same in China. So this also shows the big advantage Tesla has by not getting a lot of help from the Chinese government and having factories on each of the big auto markets continent, like the US, Europe and China, because Tesla is on all three, whereas the Chinese are mostly in China and has only started to enter Europe in small amounts and is being kept out completely in the US thanks to huge tariffs. But Tesla is already making cars locally on all three continents. So this is where Tesla has a much bigger advantage than the Chinese here in Europe, as the Chinese must get a factory up and running in Europe to skip all those tariffs, or it will be very difficult for them to compete with the likes of Tesla, because MG might sell the EVs here in Europe and at a very good and low price, but that might be on behalf of earning anything on selling those EVs here in Europe, but just trying to get in and get some market share, and then they can get a local factory and profits hopefully later. So Tesla's localized supply chain and lower tariffs give it a price advantage in key markets both in the US, Europe and China compared to the competition, allowing Tesla to maintain or even increase profit margins while offering competitive prices. And I know people will start screaming about Tesla's margins are down. Yes, but at least Tesla has margins on EVs that can be down. The others don't even make money on EVs, so it's hard to compare Tesla to anyone else really. And this is also why Tesla's big $16.5 billion deal with Samsung is such a huge deal. Because now they don't have to rely so much on foreign chips. So Tesla has partnered with both TSMC and Samsung making chips for them. So the geopolitical risk is no longer as big as Tesla does not only rely on chips from TSMC in only Taiwan. So they also get chips from South Korea, and now both TSMC and Samsung will make chips in the US for Tesla as well. But like I talked about in my news shows, the deal is about much more than just chips. Tesla spreading out the suppliers and getting chip manufacturing into the US in a huge way is of course a big deal itself. But this is much more than just about the amount of chips and de-risking geopolitical tension. This is about knowledge. As a top Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo also said, this could shake up the chip industry power balance. As he wrote, for Elon Musk and Tesla, this represents a valuable opportunity to gain real-world foundry experience at an exceptional low cost, something TSMC would never allow. It enables Tesla to enhance its chip design capabilities, particularly in manufacturing ability, while also gaining deeper manufacturing knowledge, which will give them more leverage in future negotiation with foundries. In the long run, Elon Musk businesses will only demand more advanced chip, so acquiring core manufacturing expertise becomes a strategic advantage. If the AI6 reaches mass production smoothly, chip design and manufacturing could become a core competitive advantage across Elon Musk businesses, enabling greater flexibility and lower cost. While Samsung may not fully catch up with TSMC in advanced node, it has at least discovered a new business model that actively involves customer in manufacturing process. Yes, this is a brilliant move from Tesla. I did make a video many years ago when we had the chip shortage that Tesla should maybe get into the process of producing its own chips, as this would eventually become a bottleneck. But the problem was that making semiconductors is a very difficult technology and a very costly production to get started. But this way, Tesla gets to be part of it and learn from Samsung, but without having to spend billions of dollars on creating a fab and spending years of learning how to manufacture them. This way, Tesla gets the knowledge and doesn't have to build a fab. So a very affordable way of getting into producing chips. This is kind of like what Tesla did with Panasonic. They made a joint venture to make batteries at Tesla's Nevada factory. Here Panasonic made the batteries with their technology but inside Tesla's factory. So Tesla got all the knowledge about battery manufacturing, and today they are even making their own batteries they have made from scratch. So maybe this is the first step for Tesla to get into making their own chips in-house in the future, completely taking their destiny into their own hands. Because if Tesla is really working on making hundreds of millions of robots every year and millions of robotaxis in the future, well, they are going to need hundreds of millions of chips. So getting the knowledge could be leveraged in the future negotiation with the chip manufacturer, as Ming-Chi Kuo said, but it could enable Tesla to know how fabs are operating, taking the first principle thinking on how chips are being produced and manufactured, and maybe come up with a whole new way of doing it. And combine that with Tesla starting to print labor in the form of humanoid robots in the not-so-distant future, Tesla could be producing factories that could produce chips faster, more efficient, and cheaper than anyone else. Just like Tesla has said that their own 4680 cell is now the cheapest option for Tesla to get compared to any third-party suppliers. So, because Tesla is a manufacturing powerhouse and is going to make humanoid robots robots and AI, well, like I said in other videos, there might not be a limit to what Tesla could produce if they wanted to. And making chips in the future might be one of the more important things. So that could still be something that Tesla eventually will get into, but is now learning how to by their partner Samsung. So the deal with Samsung is so much more than just about a lot of chips. It's about getting the knowledge. It's about localizing their supply chain, minimizing their geopolitical risk with one chip supplier in one country, and shielding themselves from the tariff war by having local manufacturing with local supply chain. And as Tesla is making most of their parts in-house, like seats and airbags and so much more, they also don't have to be up against the legacy automakers and their suppliers that is inflating prices and holding back technologies, like we have seen with the German automakers that have been caught. No one of the German automakers used too advanced technology or innovated too fast so that the others couldn't keep up, and held back technology that could lower emission because it would hurt the automakers' profit. But they have been caught doing this, so this is not speculation, and have paid big fines for it. But that is also why Tesla is such a big threat to the German OEMs. They are building cars in their backyard. Tesla is building their EVs 3 times faster than they can, and are coming with innovative technologies that the old guys can't keep up with. And because Tesla is not in their little cartel of automakers, cannot be held back. That is why full self-driving supervised is such a big problem for the European automakers, as they have nothing comparable and will not have for years. Sure, they can partner up with Waymo, but who is going to buy a private car with that spinning bucket on top of it? No one. So when Tesla get approval for this technology, this will truly be the first time in decades that the European automakers are not in control over how fast the innovation will happen in Europe, and Tesla will come out with a technology that will take them many, many years to catch up to, and therefore will instantly make their products obsolete. Just remember how the Germans were shocked when China opened up their doors again after COVID, and they went to the Shanghai Auto Show and show how fast the Chinese had surpassed the German automakers in electric vehicle and software-defined vehicle. And we can see that effect, that the Western brand have lost 7 million units in sale over the last 5 years in China. And at the same time, the Chinese has taken market share around the world from the Western brand as well. So their losses are not just in China, but on a global scale. But that will be nothing compared to Tesla getting full self-driving supervised and then unsupervised approved in many countries around the world. And this software is not something you need a local supply chain for, but something that is universal. And as Tesla has made a general solution, it will work everywhere, so they can implement it everywhere. So like Tesla said, slowly at first, but then all at once. So Tesla is not just in the best position for tariffs and trade wars, as they have some of the most localized supply chain. They also have some of the best and most efficient manufacturing technologies and are world leading when it comes to software. And because Tesla has become such an integrated company, it has reduced reliance on a volatile global supply chain, especially in times of geopolitical tensions. So they don't rely on third parties for their success, in sharp contrast to the legacy automakers that have outsourced everything and have basically been reduced to a car assembly company. And the only thing they are experts in is internal combustion engines, a dying technology. And the disruption in the automotive industry is happening so fast they can't shift fast enough. I've been talking about the trouble for the legacy automakers are in for almost 6 years now, but not much has changed for the legacy automakers in those 6 years. They have all come out with EVs, sure, and that's great, but they still don't know how to make software, or let alone a software-defined vehicle, and they still are nowhere close to solving autonomy. Actually, almost all of them have given up over those 6 years. including Apple. So the people still think that it is Tesla that is in trouble because of tariffs and the Chinese competition is not really looking at the facts that the Western brands over the last 5 years has been collapsing in China while Tesla has been growing. And Elon is no longer saying that it is this year we will have robotaxis. We finally have robotaxis. But the legacy automakers are still losing money on EVs and have not caught up with Tesla and have not even made a software-defined vehicle and have been giving up on full autonomy. Now relying fully on third-party companies to help them and no longer develop autonomy in-house, like we saw with both Ford and Volkswagen joint venture and GM with Cruise. I really have a harder and harder time seeing how the legacy automakers should survive this shift in the automotive industry as AI penetrates the real world. But I think Tesla, on the other hand, is looking stronger than ever before. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.